All right, Mr. Holliday here. We have a great lesson today, advanced digital techniques and tips, and we are drawing very fast. This is speed duration. We got two circles that represent cartoon cherries, an anthropomorphic cherry. So we draw the stems and we get the leaf going real fast, blocking a TV set, because I'm gonna do something cool with that. Because these are cartoon cherries, I'm gonna add some fun eyes, a smiley face, and the cherries are looking at each other and looking at the TV. We block in the shadow. We start adding details. So you get the basic shapes, redefine a line, then you add details. Now I'm going around the cherry right now, pressing harder with my pencils. It's very important. And we get some dark lines going, thick and thin lines. This is very important to doing digital line work with pencil. And so when you get that all shaded in, shade in the shadows. Now you still press hard with that pencil, go around the contours, make sure everything is nice and crispy, and then you're ready to start the digital aspect. Thumbs up. Let's get ready for the next step. And this is the second part of the advanced digital technique and tips, and this is for those who are using Adobe Photoshop. I like using Adobe Photoshop 2017. You may have a later version. Okay, so we're dealing with a larger document here, which is 1920 by 1080p. And what I want to do first is bring in my image. So I'm going to go up here to File, and I'm going to place embed. And you should have it in your folder in Google Drive or in Downloads. And this is the image that I'm working with, the cherries. And they're a little small here. And you grab the corners and you stretch it. And if you hold down Shift, it constrains the size so that it doesn't get wobbly on you. And you can just pull it. All right, now it still could be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to stretch it here and stretch it here a little bit. There you go. So I want the edges to fit the perimeter. All right, now it's pretty good. Now, what I want to do is right-click on the layer, Rasterize Layer, so that I can modify this. Right-click on the layer and Rasterize Layer. That's very important. Now, the next step I want to do is take out the color, because you will have color when you're working with a pencil drawing. All right, so a quick keyboard for taking out color is Shift-Control U, which is desaturate. Now it made it black and white. Okay. Now, what I want to do is get my levels together. So I'll hit Control L, and I want to push my darks. And because it's a pencil drawing, look how nice it made those darks. All right. And I lighten it up a little bit. Now there are some scorch marks from the scanner that I was working with. Actually, they're not scorch marks. I'm gonna hit D to default my black and white, and I'm going to use a paintbrush. So I zoom in, Alt scroll, make my paintbrush smaller by using the bracket keys. Make sure that my paintbrush is set at like around about 50, and I got a soft brush, okay? I like working with soft brushes, and I just paint directly on that face. Now I want to make sure that I have a white paint, so I hit X. So make sure that the white is the foreground color, and then I start painting. And I could fix up quite a few of these mistakes. You could take a day just fixing lines and fixing all the mistakes and specky doodles and everything that really bothers you. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that, okay? I'm just getting some of the major areas done that I felt like were problematic. There's a couple other areas like here. I'm going to take care of that. A couple of these scratchy lines that I got flying around, because when I draw, sometimes my sketch lines have a lot of energy. So I could get rid of some of them when I get to the stage of where I'm at now for painting. So you're just cleaning up your drawing at this point, cleaning it up with white paint and a paintbrush. All right. Now on this layer, I want to double click on the word, and I want to call that line art. All right. And I want to change the mode from normal, you guessed it, to multiply. Now I'm gonna pull this layer palette up here so you can see it. And it's very important that you understand that. Now I want to create a new layer, come down to my layer palette, and I'm circling right here, I'll make a new layer. Drag that layer up under this and call this layer cherries, okay? Forgive me if I spell the word cherries wrong. I think it's spelled with 2 R's. And I'm just gonna call it cherry for the sake of time. All right, but it's cherries. All right, now I'm going to come to the lasso tool, go to add to selection, and clicking in uh, small dragged out lines, you're making these polygon lines. Click, click, this is my line, and you have to go around the edge and the contour of the cherries. And I'm going to do both of them at the same time. So I did a double uh, advantage here. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone, get both of the cherries selected using this lasso tool. So you click and drag, click and drag. I'm just showing you what it looks like if you click right in between your pencil lines. And once again, if you're pressing harder with your pencil, you'll come up with some good levels, just like I got here. Okay, now some of my lines could be darker, like on the other cherry. The eyes could be a little bit darker. For the sake of time, uh, I'm not going to get into all of those issues right now, but you can make your lines darker when you draw. And you can actually make them darker in Photoshop. Because I could go back, double click. Now the whole thing is selected. I can go back and work on these eyes with a tool, and I'll show that to you a little later. But right now, this is multiplied. This layer is normal. I'm going to pick a good monochromatic pinkish red, and I'm going to do a Alt backspace, which is the fill or fill in color. And there it is, Control D. Now I can go back to this layer here, and you say, well, these eyes, they just look too light. Watch this. I'm going to select both of these eyes and go to my levels real quick. All right, Control L and push the darks. And there you go. That's one way to fix it. And then, I could go back with white paint and fix some of this stuff later. All right, but what I want to do now is select the white area on the teeth and the eyes and punch that out. So I click, go around the eyes, both set of eyes. And if you click more than once, you can get around curves real easy. So as I get around the curves, I click, 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 make small little lines that make longer, that make curves. Small little lines make curves. Knock out the mouth. And this is the lasso tool. You got to get used to this lasso tool. The lasso tool is your friend. So always remember that. It makes the best selections ever. And if you're using a mouse, kudos. If you're using that tracking pad, you need to let me know, because I need to give you some extra credit, because a mouse is really the best tool. If you're using a tracking pad with the Chromebook, you are a beast. And I say kudos to you, but you got to tell mom and dad to get you a mouse. I'm going to see if we can work on getting mouses from the school. All right, so get around these eyes, and I'm moving kind of quick here. And the mouth, click, drag, click, drag, click, drag. And you punch out, just like we did with J-Bass, the image of the teeth and the mouth. And then you do a backspace, Control D. And now you have the eyes and the teeth showing. And that's on this layer. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to duplicate this layer by hitting Control J, and that duplicates the layer. And where it says copy, I'm going to change that copy word to shade, all right? Because I'm going to show you how to shade on this layer. You're going to change the mode to multiply, and what that did was that automatically doubled the color, because it multiplied that pinkish red right on top of the other pinkish red and made an actual red color. Then you come over here to an eraser and you subtract the highlight right out of the shade. So you get that eraser bag by hitting the bracket keys. I think it's the right bracket key that makes it bigger. And I'm going to erase out a highlight. So I drop the opacity to right around 50 something. And I have a soft eraser and I begin to erase out a highlight. And I'm being an artist. So I'm curving my mouse in the area because I see the highlights coming from the left, casting the shadow on the right, and I do it on both cherries, just like that. And that's a little highlight area right there, boom. And I can work on that shape a little bit better, but for the sake of time, that looks pretty good to me, right there. It's a highlight coming right across that cherry. And you say, well, I can't really see it real good yet. Watch this. I'm on this layer. I hit Control U, which is hue saturation, and I make this darker. Now you can see it. And I could push the saturation and make that red a little bit brighter. That's in hue saturation on that layer, okay? Now I'm gonna make another layer. And this layer I'm gonna call core because I'm gonna deal with the core shadow. So core shadow will create a real nice effect. So working with monochromatic tones, shade will make a darker red. So I'm going to get like a burgundy red, maybe that tone right there. Go to a soft brush, 49% is good, make sure it's soft, and get it kind of bigger. And I am just going to just blast that coarse shadow right there. Now, when you do a coarse shadow, you want to go along the shape of the object. And notice how I'm leaving this area right down here light because I want this to be coarse shadow to reflective. And I'll point to that right now with my cursor. So we got highlight, we have the mid-tone, which is red, we have the coarse shadow, which is dark, then we have a reflective light. We do the same over here. Red, put that coarse shadow and make it curve. Make it curve. Make it curve. And don't worry if you go outside the edge, because I'm sure a cool way to clean that up. Now I want to clean this up right here because that doesn't look good. So I'll go to my eraser tool and I'll just erase that right on coarse shadow. And it doesn't affect anything else other than the area that because I'm only on that coarse shadow layer. Okay, now check this out. I'm going to go back to my cherry layer. I'm going to go to the inside of the thumbnail. Look where my cursor is going. Inside of the thumbnail. Click the inside of the thumbnail, right click, select pixels, come back to the coarse shadow. Now this is the cool thing. You say, well, you painted coarse shadow over the teeth. Watch this. Select the coarse shadow, you select the pixels, hit Shift Control I, which is the inverse. And now I'm going to punch that coarse shadow back out of the teeth and around the cherry. And I hit backspace. Boom, there it is. You see, that's magic. That is a trick. That is a tip. We're talking about advanced digital techniques and tips. Try this. It will work. It will work. And if it doesn't, then just get my attention and I'll help you. All right, so there you go. We want to add some highlights. So we got another layer, and we're just going to type in H-L for highlight. It's just use a paintbrush. And it's fighting me on this. So I'll use a paintbrush with white paint, and I'm going to put in a highlight. And it's on the highlight layer using white paint, and I just poof that in. And because it's at opacity, I can control this. And because it's on its own layer, guess what? I can move this around. Isn't that awesome? And that's on the highlight layer. You say, well, I like that. I like that shade. Watch this. Hold down Alt, take that same highlight and pull it over here. Now it's on another highlight copy. All right. And because it's on its own layer, I can get that a little bit bigger. Right click, select pixels. All right. Control T, just that little area, and make it a little bit bigger. See that? Move it around. And that's another tip. So how did I do that? I'll do that again. Escape. All right, so when you select it, you come to the layer, right click, select pixels. It selects that, Control T, and then grab that and make it bigger. Now you say, well, do you really need to do all of that? Can I just paint it with the paintbrush? Of course you can. All right, Control D, and that's a highlight. All right, and you can go back with the paintbrush and you can add more highlights, make the brush smaller. Maybe this highlights is not as bright or smaller. And there you go. And Control 0, there's your cherry. You said, well, those highlights are too bright. You can drop the opacity. About like that. He says, well, the core shadow's too dark. Drop the opacity. You say, well, the shade is too dark. Drop the opacity. There you go. And you can keep working it over and over and over. Okay, one more thing. Oh, I got a great trick. One more thing. Here we go. Before we leave, forgot to tell you this. We want to bring in an image to put on this TV. So I'm going to go File, and I'm going to have this for you. Place Embed, and we're going to get this DQ image here, and we're going to make that smaller, a lot smaller, because we're going to put this right on the TV set. Let's take this all the way to the top. So I'm going to apply it, take it to the top, and I'm going to put it above the line art. And I'm going to right click, Rasterize Layer, come to the Move tool, and I'm going to get this on the side of this TV. Then I'm going to do Control T, right click, and I love this tool. It's called Distort. I drag it down to this corner, drag this to this corner, pull this corner all the way back because I know that corner is going to fit right there. And then I'm going to grab this corner right here and pull it right there. And that was a lot because I knew where the corners were. But you can drop the opacity on that to see where everything's at. All right. And then you hit enter. And there's my EQ right on the TV. And he's looking at it saying, man, I'm one of those cherries. All right. Peace. Have fun.